Welcome to an Epiphany with Tiffany. My name is Tiffany, and I've just had an epiphany. This podcast is all about Christian singles looking for community. Christian dating can be quite a mess these days. I'll share stories from my guests and practical tips for successful love. Dating shouldn't be this hard, right? So grab your favorite snack or drink and curl up with this episode, and you might just have an epiphany of your own.
I read some of my answers and I was like, dang, that's a good answer. But yeah, I didn't, it's a lot of stuff. And I think it's just so interesting. I think it's so interesting for some of them. Yeah. I noticed I think a couple that I didn't answer that I'm like, oh, I missed it, I guess, or I didn't, I don't know how I skipped over a couple of them, but just how different, how different men and women are and how differently we think about things or process things or what those things mean to each of us. So I think it's such an interesting thing. But
Yeah, I agree. And so the couple that you might have quote missed might have been added after I had sent them to you and you had given the responses. So it
okay,
still prints those even though they were added like after your responses.
gotcha.
So because I got
Okay,
some other questions that came in after.
okay,
So yeah, that's probably why those are blank, but no worries. I think so you're number 38, which is like mind blowing to me.
yeah.
I've already done 38 interviews.
Ugh,
Well, you're doing 38, I guess. But the even just the perspectives of 37 women so far,
sure,
are so vastly different, but also it kind of always boils down to the same things. And I'm like, huh. I've just been kind of feeling like maybe that's what God really wants out of this is like, even
uh-huh,
though we have all of these different viewpoints and like how we've got to these different areas in life, it still really boils down to these things.
right,
So,
sure,
yeah. Anyway, I'm curious to see like what happens with it all at the end of the rainbow. But
yeah.
um yeah, it's definitely been interesting to kind of navigate so far. So,
I'm sure.
okay. So let's talk the when going on a first date before having met in real life question. Because
Okay,
that question, I feel like we all have very different viewpoints on like how we get to the same conclusion. So, yeah,
sure.
I'm just kind of curious if you want to expand on that. And yeah.
Which one was that? The one about
Oh,
like if
um,
he just wants to go like for coffee or something?
yes, yeah,
Was that the one?
it's page 5.
Oh, okay, like considering cost and
Mm-hmm.
do I understand if the guy doesn't want to invest too much until after we meet, or does it make me think that he's cheap? Um, I mean, I get that thought process. Like, I don't want to go just, spend who knows how much money on somebody that we're gonna go on one date and really not click and that's it. And I
Mm-hmm.
get how that could feel like a waste of money and time, but I guess in general, I mean, kind of like what I was saying, when I answered it, like it just depends on how it's approached. Like if you approach it with well, I don't know you, so I don't know if this is going to be a waste of my time, or is it like, hey, I'd love to get to know you, like, let's just do something casual, like, get coffee and go for a walk, which I would totally be down for. Um, but also, I think, in a sense, I feel like going back to like how I grew up, that's just like dinner sounds like a first date, like let's go
Mm-hmm.
to dinner and, sit down and talk over a meal, which I also think I don't know if it's a biblical concept, but I always think of it like just in growing up, like church potlucks or whatever, that, that was the time like we had lots of food, but like that was the time that we got the most like fellowship in because everybody's got their their plate of food and we're just sitting down at a table talking about, life. So part of me feels like meals in general are just kind of they bring us together, or like in that sense of like opening up, talking about whatever. So I don't know. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule one way or the other. Like I'm fine with dinner, but I'm also fine with coffee or whatever small thing. Just whatever makes each person comfortable. But for me, I think it's really hard for me to be uncomfortable. I typically like get along with people, even if maybe it shouldn't be this way, but it's something I'm working on. But like if I'm uncomfortable, I'm probably still gonna just smile a lot and nod and
Mm-hmm.
in my head be like, what do I say? How do I fix this? What do I do? How do I go away? Or like, how do I go away? How do I leave? But not be rude. Like,
Uh-huh.
uh, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it depends, but either way, but definitely like if you're making a big deal about like how much it costs, like not wanting to spend a lot of money on a first date and like saying things that make it feel like this is an inconvenience or this isn't worth it or it might not be worth it, then that would definitely be a huge like, okay, well if you already don't think that it might not be worth it, then let's just not do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to the approach and like let's have a conversation about it because why not?
Yeah,
Like if you're worried about having a conversation about the first date, then in my opinion, how else are you going to communicate about the harder things in life?
right.
You
Right.
know? Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little tidbit.
Yeah.
Like if you can't be like upfront with me, but in like a nice way and say like, "Hey, I'm interested in you. Let's go get coffee." You don't have to say like the whole investment part of it.
Right, right,
Um, it can come down to like, "Hey, let's go get coffee," or "Let's meet at the beach," or I mean, that can happen here. Or, like, "Let's go, I don't know, to the library." Like, why can't we have like book dates again? Like, that would be fun.
right, right,
Just something simple. But
right,
I do agree, like, there needs to be some like talking happening. Like, a first date should not be a movie. Just should
right.
not be.
Absolutely not.
Should not be a movie.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the things where they're like, let's normalize like going on each other's errands with, like having somebody like come do my grocery shopping with me or run my errands with me. And I'm like, yes, I am all about that. There was a guy that I dated that he didn't have a washer dryer at home, and so he was going to the laundromat. So I would meet him at the laundromat and he'd sit out in the car and talk while the clothes were going in the washer or dryer, or maybe go grab dinner while while the clothes were going. But I'm like, that's it's a normal part of life. It's something like, why do we have to be like, oh yeah, I got to do this, so I can't hang out with you? Well, why can't I come do it with you?
Heck yeah. I mean, you know how many times I've gone on bestie dates with my best friend because we've
Uh-huh.
been so busy that we can't do anything other than like do those things together, and that's how we're spending
Right.
time together. Why can't we do that with a guy? Like, I don't understand.
Right. Right.
That's literally the everyday life stuff. And
Hmm.
if you can't function and make it work in that scenario,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, you're probably not going to be able to have fun in anything.
Well, and it's just so low pressure. Like you don't have to spend any
Yes.
money. You like I don't necessarily, not that you want to be all like frumpy, but like I don't have to dress up and like, feel like I'm supposed to look my absolute best for this. Like we're just hanging out, running errands, doing whatever.
Yeah. Heck yeah, guys, that's a good date right there. Just say, "Hey, I gotta go run some errands. You wanna come with me?" Heck yeah. Like, let's go do
Yeah.
some normal life stuff together. Because I feel like too, like with the pressure aspect, when we go into it going like, I'm going to dinner with this person or whatever, it brings in that anxiety and like the other stuff that you feel like you have to be on point, like you can't
Right.
be natural. And I,
Yeah.
I would rather somebody just be themselves.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that I feel comfortable enough to be myself around too. It's like, just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, I probably
Well, and
rant
then
about that for a while.
it's not so stressed and like I don't know, kind of like what you said, like, you don't feel like you have to necessarily be just like best. I mean, like, yes, you want to make a good first impression, but like, I don't have to be the best at everything right now because this is just everyday life. Like, you get to see, I don't think it's good for both sides. Like, you just getting to see, like, this is what I'm like on a normal day. Like, this is not just me, like, putting my best foot forward and showing you all of the great, the great things about me. But you might see some of the goofy, weird things about me too, or some of the things where I'm like, if it's a day where I have stuff to do and I can't quite get it all together because my brain is just all over the place. And
Mm,
so it's a little chaotic, but that's like normal everyday life. And I think I mean, again, kind of like you were saying too, like it's a good indicator. Like if you can handle, just go with the flow, doing these things or, hanging out doing this, then that's a good indicator that you could be a good like life partner in the
mhm,
future with other things. But like, oh, that's what you were saying about like communication. If you if you can't communicate about something as simple as like a first date, then how are you going to communicate about more important things?
mhm,
And I think that in a similar way, like if you can deal with me or have fun with me just doing the mundane simple things, then no worries about the other things.
mhm. Yeah, if we can have a day where I'm literally wearing my workout pants, a whatever shirt, my hair is in a messy bun because I'm running all these errands, but you can come alongside me and have like the best time. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
You've already just like you've gained like 5 notches on for me on that aspect. Cause like,
Right.
you know, I mean, I've heard from many, many, many guy friends of mine that they actually are the type of guy that likes their girl not so, like, done up and, like, whatever, and I'm
Uh-huh.
all, "Okay. Sure." You know what I mean? But it's still nice, like, when you're not looking your best to be told you look nice.
Yes.
So, again, like,
Sure.
the yeah, but you still wanna look decent, you know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
Not Not too much of a mess, especially in a first date scenario, but, like,
Right, right,
if
right.
it's a couple of dates in, yeah, you're gonna get more of the real true me and how I dress every day because this is what you're gonna get every day, so you might as well like it now.
Right, right.
Uh, anyway, I always I don't know about you, but I always put, like, a picture on my dating profiles of me with no makeup and messy bun because 'cause I'm, like, literally everyday look right.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, I don't wear makeup like ever anymore. Like I think I had kids and like it kind of just slowly I really love sleeping. I mean, just being honest, I need good sleep to be like a fully functioning human. And I know that like everyone needs a different amount of sleep, but I'm like, I know where the sweet spot is. And if I'm not getting that, as close to that as I can get is what I'm going to get. So makeup is out the window unless, yeah, I literally every so often I think about it and I think all my makeup is so old that it probably wouldn't even look good
Mm,
anymore. I should probably just throw it in the trash, but I haven't because it's just sitting in my old makeup bag. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's there in case I ever decide that I want to not sleep and get up early to do anything. So, I mean, but thankfully, I say thankfully, at least I think I have pretty good skin. And that's, genetics. I mean, I do try to take care of it and whatnot, but but yeah, like whenever they're like, girls wear or girls, females, whatever, I can't ever decide what to call people my age because
Right.
girls seems too young because we're not girls, and it seems like, that's for immature people, but saying ladies and women feels so old or proper or something. But whatever you want to call us. Um, I don't even know where I was going. I totally lost my train of thought because I started talking about what we're called. But anyways, I mean, just in general, I know like taking good care of your skin and whatnot, but I just don't do makeup. Oh, that's what I was saying. How men say they like women that don't wear makeup or don't wear a lot of makeup, and how I know that's been the argument. Like, you don't know what it looks like to not be wearing makeup. You just think the look like you're not wearing tons of makeup where you might be, but it's just the natural look. But I just don't really resonate with all of that because, like I said, I haven't worn makeup for years now. I'll do chapstick. I don't
Put
think
some
that
chapstick on.
counts. I mean,
No.
the girl that does my hair, I tell her all the time, I'm like, you put the most effort into my hair. Like, I mean, honestly, having curly hair makes it easier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I'm like, I'll come in to her sometimes and just have my hair barely pulled back, and she goes, "Ooh, your hair looks so cute." And I was like, Mara, I just like pulled it back this morning to get it out of my face, but I didn't wet it. I didn't even do anything to it this morning. Like, I kind of just woke up like this, and she's like, "Don't say that." And I'm like, "I'm sorry. I'm not I'm not trying to be that person." Because then when I actually like make the effort on my hair and people are like, "Don't say anything." And I'm like, "I tried on my hair today." It's the days where like I put in zero effort and I don't really like how it looks. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, your hair looks so great." And you're like, "Thank you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one. Or yeah, on that one, sister, because same. Like, I mean, like, look at this. Like,
Oh, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. So it's
I
very,
love it.
very, very beautiful right now.
I wish
Uh,
mine would grow faster. I've been growing mine out, but like we keep like trimming and shaping it, and I'm like, grow faster.
yeah, that's the struggle and a half. Mine, this is
Yes.
like, um, I think this is like my third year of having it like roughly this length. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it took forever, which was crazy because now it grows. Like you can see these roots. Like
Uh-huh.
I just got my hair done.
Oh wow.
And so like see well, I have it the opposite direction. This picture,
Uh-huh.
literally, I still have little bitty bitty roots. That was
Yeah.
oh 2 weeks after getting my hair touched up.
Oh
And I was
wow.
already showing roots. So it takes a while. But
Yeah.
I love it now. I'm like, never, ever, 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 ever let me cut my hair again. Like, just
Right.
don't let
I
me do
always
it
regret it.
every time. I mean, yes, it takes a million years to get it to look like it does in this beautiful photo right here. Um, but it's nice
Yeah.
though on days where I can just wake up and be like, throw some water in it and call it good.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like it with the pretty waves too. So, I feel you though, but it's
Yeah.
nice. I tend to have people go the same thing, tell me the same, like the days that I look like a mess. They're like, "Oh my gosh, your hair looks so great." And I'm like, "Seriously, it's a freaking lion's mane right now." Like, there's probably a rat's nest up under here and and you see really, you know,
Right.
but when I go looking
Because
like
that's what we
this,
do.
yeah,
People say we look great or tell us we did something good, and we have to point out all the flaws in it. Why? I don't know.
culture, that is why.
Well, I think
uh
I did I don't know if you saw it in one of the groups. There was like it wasn't speed dating really, but it was a Zoom mixer. That's what it was. And like they like kept separating us out into rooms, and what was the question? You said that and it made me think of one of the questions. Oh, one of the questions they asked, they like did would you rathers. And
Mm,
like we're saying like would you rather give compliments or get compliments? And like just the like different people's like feedback on that. And I was like, oh, I would much rather give a compliment because if I'm getting compliments, I don't really know how to take it or handle it. But like I think it's interesting you said it's culture because I'm like, yeah, like I don't know. I think it depends on like how maybe not even just how you grew up, but just like what you're around or the types of people that you're around. Like if you don't get a lot of compliments and then you do, it's like, what do I do with this? Do I believe you? Or I mean, and some of it I guess is not even self-awareness, just what you believe about yourself, I suppose.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so just I mean, I've come a long way in being able to be like, okay, thank you. Whether or not I believe it about myself, what someone else is saying is still not quite there yet
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because I always question people's motives, I guess, especially when you're doing like the dating thing, like or like, like dating apps or whatever. Like somebody was like, "You're gorgeous." And you're like, "What do you want?"
Excuse me, sir. Yeah.
I mean, especially when that's the first message. That's when I'm like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm the same way. So my third love language is technically words of affirmation, but and I say it's actually technically the second, but anyway, physical touch and quality time are tied for me. And then it's words
Okay.
of affirmation. So that's anyway, but that's how I lay out. So, but I'm like super good at giving the words of affirmation. But as soon
Uh-huh.
as somebody comes at me and they're like, "Oh, you look so great," or "Oh, you were so good at this," or blah blah blah, I'm like, you know, like I don't know how to handle this. Go away.
Right. Right.
And it's just so like it's so weird to me because I can freely give it. I just can't
Yeah.
receive it, and or it's
Yeah.
hard for me to receive it. Not that I can't. It's hard for
Yeah.
me to receive it. And I know I was telling somebody recently because they were like, "Well, why? Like, what happened? Like what is it that's, causing you to have a visceral reaction to me complimenting you right now?" And I was just like, honestly, it's the lies that I have been told and believe about myself.
Mm.
Like, that's what it
Yeah.
is, what it comes down to.
Sure.
And, they were like, well, stop letting Satan lie to you. And I was like, okay.
You're like, ouch.
I was like, I'm going to use that. I was like, that was pretty effective, actually, because I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, even though I can admit it out loud, like, I know
Yeah.
these are lies. It sometimes takes somebody else telling you, like, well, stop believing them or stop listening to them
Yeah.
or, you know, stop letting him say those things to you. It's like, oh, okay,
Right.
you're right. You are right. Like, resist, and he will flee. It's the same thing
Right.
as like as other temptations, right? It's the temptation to
Hmm.
believe his twisted little things to make us feel like, we're not worth it or we're less than or, whatever,
Right.
because that's his whole MO.
Right.
Literally been doing it since day one.
Right. Right.
uh but anyway, that's a whole different rant. But I just thought it was so
Yeah.
funny that this person was like, "Well, just stop it," and I'm like, oh, "Okay, like,
I mean, I'm
yeah,
really good at telling other people that too. Like, I should preach it out myself. Being like, don't talk to, like, I read it somewhere and I was like, such a good point that you talk to yourself more than you talk to anybody else because of your thoughts. So if you wouldn't say it to somebody else, don't say it to yourself. That means not even thinking it. And I'm like, ouch. Because I
mhm,
do the whole, oh, why am I so stupid? Or why am I such an idiot? And I'm like, stop it. You're not. We can make poor choices or, mess things up or make mistakes without being stupid or without being an idiot. Like, I don't let
Yep.
my kids name call each other. Like, stop doing this to yourself. But yeah, it's so easy to tell other people, like, don't do that. That's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, keeping yourself from doing it is a whole other story.
Whole other thing. Like my favorite emoji these days to use is the face palm.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm just constantly over here going like, oh my gosh, why did I say that? Or,
Yeah.
like you, Tiffany, what is wrong with you? Like that kind of thing. And then
Uh-huh.
it's the same point though.
Yeah.
Just let your little freak flag fly and be a
Right.
goofball and it's fine.
It's okay. We're all weird in our own little ways.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to stop overthinking it after the fact because I do that too. I don't know if you like overthink. Like I just had a whole conversation and like I said just the most random thing that shouldn't have probably been said out loud. Like it should have just stayed in my head but I just said it and was like, why am I the way that I am? Why do I say these things? I don't know. It's the hazards of being extroverted and liking to like talk to people and try to like I work at a gas station, so I come in
Yeah.
contact with all kinds of people. I don't know if you're familiar with QT.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, especially if I'm running register, so many people. And so, you're just trying to like make small talk. I mean, I don't necessarily love small talk, but like instead of just standing there while they like pay or whatever you're doing, like try to talk to everybody. And
Right.
sometimes that's not the greatest idea because my brain's just on overdrive like, ooh, what can I say, what can I like, how do I connect with them? I mean, like, obviously like I like to give genuine like if I look at them and I don't mean this in a mean way, not like I see them and I'm not like there's nothing jumping out at me that like, ooh, I love your hair or your earrings or your shirt or whatever, if
Right.
there's no like obvious thing, then like I kind of feel like, well, I don't know what to say then because there's not something I can like compliment them on. So sometimes it really is just like you having a good day or whatever. But yeah, sometimes it ends up being way more just randomly dumb and I'm like, I should just stop talking sometimes. For real.
Sometimes I question myself and I'm like, how did I let that intrusive thought get out? Like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And I'm just like, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
I
Or
mean, I
somebody
know where it
says
came from,
something
but
and like you make a connection to like, there's the whole um like song lyrics or movie quotes or whatever that like somebody says something, but then there's a whole nother level where somebody says something that for whatever reason it randomly triggers this random thing that's from nothing, just my brain, and I say it out loud and I'm like, I don't know. No explanation. It's just like you can just forget that I was talking because that didn't make any sense. Can we just scooch on to the next thing? Okay.
it made
Ah,
perfect sense to my brain because I'm like, yes, I do the same thing.
right, right.
Yeah. Yep. No, but seriously though, it's like it's a struggle. And I think we as a society,
Mhm.
get too wrapped up into that like mindset of like, oh my God, they totally think I'm weird right now, like,
Uh-huh.
or whatever that thought is.
Yes.
Um, and it's just kind of like, but that's, one, that's how God made us. Two,
Yeah.
like, why are we listening to something when in all reality they probably thought it was either adorable or just like, okay, that was cool. They probably didn't worry about it too much. Or maybe it's a
Right.
funny story for them down the road somewhere for somebody else. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right, right. I mean, I have those stories. I have all the stories. So yeah, I'm sure in somebody's story somewhere. Yeah, the girl at the gas station was really weird.
But you brought a smile to their face that day, so that's
Yes,
what the
right,
point is.
right.
It's all about changing the perspective, on like
Yes.
our weird quirks. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Normal is relative. It doesn't exist.
it really doesn't exist. It's like I hate that phrasing, like well, that's not normal. What is normal? Like, let's be
Right.
honest.
Right.
What is normal? There might have been a normal if there was never a fall of man, but
True.
that's not the case, okay? It's not the world we're living in, y'all.
Right.
So there
Although
is
I
no
like to
normal.
think that, God clearly likes variety since he made so many different varieties of plants and animals and people. So I'm like, being the same is boring.
Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna have to remind myself of that too. Being the same as other people or feeling like I have to be the same is boring
Right.
also, because I'm
But we
not.
do it, right? We compare like, but they're so cool or they're so put together or they're so whatever.
Mhm.
And then realize I can't keep up with that facade because that is not me.
Not me at all. I might be put together in some areas, in other areas,
Yeah.
there's just no hope. There's just none. It's not how God gifted me.
And
Uh,
that's okay.
yeah. Again, I gotta let my flag fly, whatever it may
Uh-huh.
be, and allow my weird quirkiness to be what it is. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I I have some things. Oh my gosh, I feel like that's I don't know if you feel like this like when you're dating. It's like how soon do you let your crazy out? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And that's I think why I've been using the facepalm emoji so much lately is because it's been coming out hard and I'm like, rein it in, Tiffany. Rein it in. Ah,
Yeah.
it's just, it's one of those things.
When it's so hard, especially when so much of dating seems to be like online interactions or like
Yes.
I've never even met you in person. Like even like I was saying, the Zoom mixer that I went to it. It's not anything I went to. I just sat at home on my bed. But like even that, like it was fun and there were people that kind of carried the conversation, I feel like.
Mhm.
But I just think it's so interesting to myself even that like I love talking to people and like getting to know them and chatting about whatever, different stuff. But like throw me on the computer with like a bunch of faces, people that I've never met before. And the etiquette's a little odd too, because you're like, do we just stay muted or do I stay on and like we just take turns talking? But then like you absolutely have to take turns because you won't hear multiple people at the same time. Like you'll hear one over the other. So it just it was an experience. I'm glad I did it. I don't know I don't know how much I actually enjoyed it in that regard, but it was still interesting to see, I think even for myself, how I interacted. I felt like I was less extroverted, or at least from what I showed
Hmm.
on Zoom than I would be in person. Like I feel like I'm a much better person in person. Or
Yeah.
like one on one or like with a couple of people than like a whole group of people. So I think that's the like trying to get to that point. Like how do I get to the in-person point? Because I'm better in person.
Mhm. I feel like I'm a lot better in person too. I mean, I've been doing a lot of these, which isn't
Uh-huh.
exactly in person, but
Right.
it's still I've I thrive in person, which is
Uh-huh.
pretty hilarious considering that I'm well, I'm technically an omnivert. So like I borderline between introvert, extrovert,
Uh-huh.
you know? And so but I definitely have to have like my introverted time where I'm like nobody talk to me, all that like all those things, right? But when I'm in a
Uh-huh.
group of people, so many people will not believe that I'm actually introverted too. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're
Uh-huh.
such an extrovert," and all this stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah." It's because like when I'm around people that I'm like, either I haven't been around people in a hot minute, or I'm
Uh-huh.
around a mix of people that I'm really comfortable with, and then people that I'm kind of still meeting, like I tend
Yeah.
to be like, okay, here's my extroverted crazy self, you know?
Right. Right.
But then if it's like one on one, that's a whole other level
Right.
of Tiffany, because at that point there's like no judgment, and it's like you and me, or we're just here in this moment, and I can be
Uh-huh.
free to, one, like just feel more open, I guess, is like, and be vulnerable in a different way than I would be like in a huge group of people, because that's a different level.
Yes.
You
Well,
know?
that and like I think I find myself not wanting to be like I don't want to jump in and be the first person to answer a question every single time. Even
Right.
though the question is asked and almost immediately, depending on the question, sometimes I really have to think about it, but most of the time, like immediately, I'm thinking like, oh, I know exactly what I want to say or what I would say, but I don't want to be that person. So it's a
Right.
lot of, I think, oh, what's the word? Like not censoring like in a bad way, but like pulling back, like censoring myself, like, okay, chill, don't be the like jump in and have to say everything. But then like once several people have gone, then it's like, okay, well now do I still answer? Because it feels like everybody's answered and it feels weird to answer now. And it's
Yeah.
just a lot of overthinking. That's why I think, like you said, like just the like one on one or like in a very small group, like maybe three or four people at the most. Like I do really well like actually interacting in those groups. Larger groups, I like to observe. Like I like to be there kind of in the mix, but just do a lot of listening and just watching and because I definitely gain energy from interactions like that, just being there and I'm typically the like last to leave places because I want to soak it all up and not leave because then it's over. And then
Yep.
I have to go to my car and go home and then what? Or like
Right.
whenever people come over, like I don't ever want them to leave. I mean, not never, but like, yeah, in my head, like when people start talking about, well, we're getting ready to leave, or whatever, and I'm like internally like, no, stay.
Don't go. I'm the same. I think it's going to be really interesting because I'm going to the meetup in November. So
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
I'm excited, but also a little bit nervous.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be really interesting to see what side of Tiffany comes out. Because if it's like really overwhelming and too many people, I'm
Mm,
gonna be like, okay. But
yeah.
I've also kind of developed like some friendships with some of the people that are going. So I'm like, okay, maybe
Uh-huh.
I'll be more okay. I'll be more like middle ground Tiffany, because I'll be like comfortable with these people. And then like
Yeah.
these other people over here, it'll just be like, okay, cool, I'll get to know you, I guess. But it also depends on too, like, are they really quiet people, or are they,
That's true.
more extroverted individuals too? Because if they're extroverted, I'm gonna feed off of that. You know,
Right. Yes.
if everybody's introverted, we're all just gonna sit there, and I'm just gonna be like, oh boy. Because in those moments, I'm like, there's too much introvert happening. Like, I need a little bit of something. So,
Right. So it's not just awkward,
yeah.
like sometimes you try to talk to people and they're just it's like one word answers and you're like, okay, this is going nowhere. I don't know if you just don't want to talk or this is how you communicate.
Hmm. Which just brings like a whole nother level of things. It's like
Yeah.
figuring that out with somebody that, we'll bring this back into dating, right? Like figuring that out
Yeah.
with somebody you're interested in, like, how do they communicate? Are
Right.
they the type that will sit there and like tell you, hey, I'm gonna go do this today, I'll text you later? Or are they the people who leave you hanging on red for like days?
Right.
And so it's like, ugh. Navigating that, like when you're one or the other too, is like
Yes.
a whole thing.
And I think
Um,
that was such an interesting thing to see the different perspectives, like in the in the groups, like where people ask those questions, like, how much should you text when you're, first getting to know each other or whatever, or like how much do you appreciate? And it's just so baffling to me, people that are like, we don't have to talk every day. And I'm like, what? Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be all day long. And I don't want just a, hey, good morning text. And then that's all I hear from you all day. And then
Yeah.
like, well, I hope you have a good night. And then that's it. Like, I don't want that. Like, I want to hear from you. Like, and some of that is like, I guess what I'm still figuring out when it comes to like the dating world, because I really haven't, I think I've dated two guys since I got divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and they've both been pretty, it's both been pretty short, and both of them were things that I decided to end just because I felt like they weren't. The one was, I the more I processed the date that we went on, I was like, yeah, this is not at all
Yeah.
the direction I'm heading. And the other was more like 2 months, I guess, of like talking and, going out for dinner, hanging, like I said, going to the laundromat, and just going for walks downtown, just different stuff. Um, but like he would always avoid the, define the relationship. Like I would be like, we need to talk about this. And he'd be like, yeah, I know we do. And so finally I forced the conversation. I ended up talking to a friend, and she was like, well, it's not kind of him to, when you've told him you need this and you guys have been, seeing each other for 2 months, that's plenty long enough to like have some thoughts on it and not just keep holding out on not having
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. Like, and I was like, you're right. Like, I don't want to get stuck back in like the situation that I was in before I got divorced. Like, that was awful. And so she's like, think about it, pray about it, maybe write out what you want to say, but I would talk to him sooner rather than later. I was like, it's a really good point. And so I ended up calling him and just being like, hey, we really need to talk about this. And
Mm-hmm.
he was like, okay, what you got? So I had written out a whole note to myself, because that makes me, it's so much better when I do that, when I can just basically read it, but maybe like edit it a little myself as I say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And basically just came to the conclusion we were just at different points in life at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that he was not a good guy, just we were headed in different directions at that point in time. Um, but I think even then it's just so interesting, because like part of, so during that interaction, I think part of my I say frustration, but like I would back and forth with myself over it too, because I would be like, okay, I'm not going to be the one to reach out today. If he doesn't reach out, it's fine. I'll wait for him to say something. And then I would basically be in like that whole mental game of like, okay, I guess this is it. It's fine. I'm good with it. Not going to hear from him. And then he would text me. And I was like,
Okay,
fine.
Ty.
Okay. I guess we are doing this. It's yes. So then I
Literally
would
every
respond,
time.
and we went back and forth for a little bit. And then, like, it would be another couple days, and I'd be like, okay, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be the first one to say anything. Like, if this is it, this is it. And it was just this whole cycle over and over again of like wanting to, because I mean, to be honest, I mean, I was married for 14 years. And so even though, like, I don't know, it wasn't all bad, and it wasn't always the way that it was at the end. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was times where, like where what literally was like, you know, I don't know, I can't even think of an example now, but just like throughout the day, it was just like you're doing something and you're like, hey, how are you? What are you doing right now? Or I'm doing this, and it made me think of you, or whatever. Like, I think those are the things, like just the day to day boring things, but that you want to share with somebody else. And so I think, like I said, I think it's just so interesting. People have such different opinions on like when you're getting to know each other, no need to text, every day or whatever. Or like I think that was another thing that was said, something about like, well, if you have a date set up for like later in the week or something, like maybe say something like, a few days before, but I don't think you need to necessarily like communicate the couple days like before. Then I'm like, yes, you do. How do I trust that you're actually still going to show up?
Yes.
Like, I think that's the big thing for me too. Like, trusting that people are going to do what they say they're going to do. Because even in like not dating, sometimes people say things like, oh yeah, I'll do that or whatever. And so like when I'm actually like putting in effort to get dressed up and meet you somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're coming. I hope you are. You said you were, but I don't know if that means anything because I don't actually know you yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I personally like, I would rather you tell me like 15 times than don't tell me anything at all. 15 is probably overkill at that point. I might be like, listen, did you forget? Because you've already told me so
Yeah.
many times. But in general, that's obviously an over exaggeration. But in general, like, just communicate. I don't want to be left in the dark or
Mm-hmm.
wondering like, is this a thing? Are we doing this? Are we not doing this?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's another, I don't know. I don't remember thinking back to like what people said. I don't remember if it was more one-sided to like men or women as far as like who thought that communication wasn't, I say not that it wasn't important, but like that you didn't necessarily need to communicate every day or whatever.
I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna find it because I want to look at it from the demographics. Like demographically, I want to know. Yeah, I don't remember either because I mean I don't remember if I commented on that one in particular, but um I was very much like, yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be all throughout the day. Just if it's
Yeah.
something simple, like, hey, I'm thinking of you, or like, hey, I had this question, answer it when
Yeah.
you can. Like, that's fine, but then I've also been in like the situationships where like the guy wants to literally sit and be on the phone for like 4 hours. And I'm like, oh, it's when the conversation's flowing, that's fine, but it's also
Yeah.
super draining,
Right.
so it's just kind of like, okay, what's that balance of like how
Uh-huh.
do we figure this out, especially if it's a long distance thing.
Right.
um, but again, like there's a balance there and it can be good. You just have to figure out what it is for you as like the couple, you know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna go back and find that post now and be like, I wonder what it was demographically. Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there was at least one or two posts that like lots of people were commenting on, and that like so much of what I saw was like, yeah, doesn't have to be every day. And I'm like, I do not know how you guys, maybe this is why you're all single. Then I'm like, well, I'm single too. So
But what's funny is like sometimes when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, nope. You know, like
yeah, right.
it's like, okay, well, you're taken off the list, or
Right. I
whatever.
know. Because you see people that are like, oh, I really like the way they think and whatever. And then like you see like multiple things that you're like, okay, never mind.
Never
Not
mind.
actually.
Never mind. I liked you on this one post, maybe not so much on this post.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess not that you have to agree with everything, but there's the
Yeah.
certain things. There's the, we joke about the the other night in our small group, there was a few of us. So I have two sisters that live with me. They're much younger than I am. And they're both single. And just for, I don't even remember what brought it up, but they started doing, I'm sure you've seen it or heard it, the he's a 10, but
I have that game.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And so we were literally doing that. Because we at our small group we have dinner together first before we have our like we sing and have discussion time about the sermon from Sunday. So yeah, it was during dinner time like they started doing it. So like all through dinner, like we did it for a little bit and then conversation kept going and then all of a sudden somebody was like, okay, I got one. So it's just a back and forth thing. But it's just funny because we were kind of discussing even just in that, like certain things like, okay, is this an actual deal breaker or is it like it's a preference, but like in the like grand scheme of things, not a big deal.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, I think I don't know, there's so many as much as like I feel like being older, dating is so much harder. Like some people are like, oh, we overcomplicate it. But I'm like, no, there's just so much more nuance and like, especially once you've lived so much life. And then, like I said, like I've been married before. When I was 18 and first met my husband at the time, like I wasn't thinking about any of the things that I'm thinking about now when I think about dating and relationships. Because
Mm-hmm.
back then it was just like, oh, he's cute and he makes me laugh and we have fun together. You know,
Yep.
nothing even super serious. And now it's like, oh, like, you see a profile and you're like, dude, he is beautiful. Maybe I shouldn't use that word about a man, but they can be beautiful too sometimes, I think.
They can.
Uh, but then, like, you start reading their profile and you're like, oh, never mind. Or, so I don't know. It's such a hard, but like I said, it's the whole in-person thing. I wish that there was, I don't know, like how do I do this thing where I like to drive myself crazy because I'm like, people met in person before the internet. Like, I when I was married, I met my husband in person, but we were also at college. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's an easier way, I guess, because there's such a huge group of, people your age that are all kind of on the same path, at least education wise and whatnot. But I don't know, the suggestions, like I said, one of my sisters, she works at she works at a little gymnastics gym for children, and she's like, her coworkers will be like, I'm gonna take you to the bar with me so you can meet somebody. She's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But like literally, it's like, where do you meet people? And I've seen all the ideas, like go, what was the one thing? There was something I saw that said, like, go do the things or go to the places or go do the things that you would, I'm not even phrasing this right at all. It's coming out so jumbled. Basically, like, go to the places that you would want to go with, like, your significant other or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
like, okay, if you don't want to like go to a bar, then why would you meet them at a bar? Because that's not where, that's not the place that you typically would want to go with them or spend time with them. So like go to those places or go do things that you think that you would enjoy doing together, because maybe you'll find other single people doing those things too, or if nothing else, you'll enjoy doing those things regardless of whether or not you have somebody with you instead of just sitting at home. But I'm like, all those things like going out, I think I hate hearing that so much. Put yourself out there. How much effort are you making to put yourself out there? Put myself out where I'm alive. I go to work, I go to church, and I go to the grocery store, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm out and about out of my house. I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to do. So I think
Seriously.
that's one of the things too that I'm like, where are you supposed to meet people in real life? Because yeah, I'm better in real life.
Same.
I
No.
just don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to present myself like how I am online, like just in typed text and whatnot. Like, plus that, and so many people, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. How do they keep up with being like on Facebook, like in a group? Like, by the time I actually get on there to look, there's like 50 something comments already. And I'm like, I can't even read all of these, let alone like if I and I hate responding the same thing somebody else responded. I say I hate it, but like it just feels so repetitive. Or like if
Yeah.
I'm reading comments and I'm like, they're literally all just repeating themselves or like repeating each other. Like, sure, it's great if you agree with them, then just say I agree or like their comments.
Yeah.
And that's what I end up doing a lot if I'm going to interact, because I'm like, well, what's the point in like just saying the same thing everyone else is saying? But then it also keeps me from, really feeling like I'm interacting that much. I don't know. It's a whole,
The whole
It's a
thing.
whole thing. Catch 22. Like, I don't want to be on my phone a lot, but I want to meet somebody. And so I like go out and don't meet people. So I'm like, fine, I guess I'll just be more interactive on this. But then it's just, it moves so fast and there's so many people and they're so like everywhere. I don't know. Just trying not
I
to
yeah.
think too much about all of that.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the stories and the perspectives that were shared in this episode. Please share it with a friend whose dating life might need some help. Wink, wink. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at An Epiph with Tiff. I really hope to see you there. There are multiple ways that you can support my show. You can pray for me, rate, review, and share any episode that you love. Or you can even financially contribute by going to patreon.com/an epiphany with Tiffany. Until next time, I'm Tiffany, and I hope you just had an epiphany.